Hello everyone. As usual, I'm going to do my little check before I actually start digging into building the stuff that we're going to build today. So just bear with me for a second. Alright, cool. So we're doing well. Welcome to what probably is going to be the last session on this series. I'm just going to open my stream on my second screen just so I can see if you have any questions and I can answer them live. Here we go. So, how do I do this? I'm being an idiot. Alright, cool. So yeah, this is probably going to be the last session that we have on this particular series. So what I've been doing for the last, I think this is episode 7, which is what I named the stream, so hopefully it is episode 7. But what I've been doing for the last 7 episodes, with a little break in between, which I'll get back to, is building a lead generation chatbot. Lead generation is probably one of the main kind of use cases for chatbots. People do put them on their website to answer questions, or on their social media platforms like Facebook Messenger and so forth, to answer questions from users. And one of the main use cases is to obviously turn these question and answers into actual leads that will hopefully generate money for the business. And so what I've done for the last 7 weeks or so, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, is creating a chatbot that would actually do both. So it would do FAQs, answering questions about the kind of services that this fictitious company does, and at the same time, hopefully book meetings with the sales team, so generating leads. So to wrap things up, what we did last week was we worked a little bit on the dashboard. We mostly worked through adding some metrics that are really relevant for the user, for the person looking at the dashboard. So unfortunately, I think someone kind of messed around with these a little bit. I did hand it over to Jacob. Jacob, if you're listening to me and you messed around with these, I'm not happy, but it's okay. We basically just played around with these just to make sure that they are really relevant. So we had some vanity metrics such as total subscribers, total messages, etc. But then we also had some more interesting metrics like number of leads for the SEO service, number of leads for PPC, and then we also did a little bit of funnel approach. So we have long SEO conversations, SEO lead generation conversations, which have 8 steps, I think. And obviously, what you can probably expect is that at the top there's going to be quite a few people, and then the number of people that go down all the way to the bottom are going to be maybe a little bit fewer. And so what you want to know as the chatbot builder behind it is you want to know how many people are at the top, how many people come out, so that you can see kind of the conversion rate of your conversation, which is really important as far as metrics go. Other things we did, we added top FAQs, we added a nice interactions chart, which I think is alright. I think this was added by Jacob later on, but the point of this chart is actually quite interesting, and I probably didn't really touch on it last week. But the point of this one is to show the average number of interactions per hour of the day throughout a period of time. And so obviously, because this is a demo bot and I'm not obviously putting it live on any website, it doesn't get any traffic. These interactions are not really valuable, they don't really tell us anything. But in a real bot, what you'll usually see is obviously a curve of the activity throughout the day. And this is really interesting and valuable insights, because this tells you when your chatbot is most active, or more likely when your users are most active and actually talking to your bot. And this tells you when your audience is actually looking to engage with you, which is very important. Very good piece of information there. The other thing it does is obviously if it tells you that your audience is mostly engaging with your chatbot at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's an HR chatbot, for instance, this tells you that your workforce is obviously trying to reach out to you before working hours, which is important to know, because at that point you probably don't have any staff member willing to obviously pick up the phone or anything like that, and so the chatbot is doing its job. So all that kind of stuff. Same with an e-commerce website, for instance. If you had a chatbot there and most of the interactions are at midnight or something, you can figure out from the time zones that this might be a specific part of the world that is really engaged at that point of the day, and maybe you want to put more work into translating your website into a language that's suitable for that part of the world, for instance. So yeah, I didn't really go into this one last time because there isn't really much data to show you, but it is a pretty good piece of metric. So what I want to do this week, to wrap this one up, is I want to do a bit of training. I did one session like this a little while back, and I tend to do those at close to the same time as when I'm creating FAQs. But this time I kind of moved away from that because we had other things to do. We created an integration to Airtable, and we created a Telegram bot, I think. So we did all sorts of things, all sorts of other cool things. So I kind of want to go back to that because I did run through a couple of training sessions with existing partners and new partners recently, and we did go through training quite a bit, and I did think it might be worth going through it again in this session. And obviously if you have any questions about it, we'll go through it. My trusty bottle of water. All right, cool. So what I want to do is I want to get a bit of a refresher on the kind of questions that people are able to ask to this chatbot. So if you remember, this is a fictitious marketing agency. They created a bot to place on their website. It's called the Yellow Bot, the Yellow Dog marketing agency. And this bot can basically do all sorts of things. So it can answer questions like, do you have a portfolio I can look at? How can I contact you? What are your PPC services? What are your web design services? And what are your SEO services? All right, so let's give it a try. So if we take, let's say, SEO services, what happens? Okay, so we instantly get an answer, which is great. So what we've done here is we've basically picked up an exact match sentence. So the chatbot is very highly specifically programmed to answer this exact question in this exact kind of sequence of words, which is great. But if anyone sends a question in a slightly different manner, will the chatbot pick it up? This is kind of what we're going to work on today. So I noticed a couple of things first. I noticed that we turned on the was this helpful follow-up, which I'm going to turn off for the purpose of this testing. So if you are on a team that is building a bot, I would strongly suggest that you turn this off as you're going through the testing the training period, because it's just going to add more messages to your interactions. You just don't want to have to deal with that. So I'd go into FAQs and then follow-ups, and I'm going to turn this off. Perfect. All right, so if I send the same question now, it should just answer the question and not give me that follow-up. Okay, great. So I'm just going to receive one message, which is just going to keep things a bit tidier for now. I'll reactivate it afterwards. What I would say is, as you're creating a new bot, you probably want to spend the first kind of week or a few days creating FAQs for the bot, and I think I touched on that in that specific session. But once you've spent a few days working on the FAQs and you're kind of confident that your bot has all of the FAQs it needs to be able to answer, it is worth spending 2 days, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, depending on how many FAQs you have, actually training the bot. And for this, I usually recommend three phases of this. So the first is obviously going at it yourself. You know what your bot is supposed to be able to answer. So you should be able to go into the bot and just ask all of the questions in a way that, without cheating, without looking at the FAQs. So try that and see whatever the bot doesn't understand and train it. Second is to send it to people within your team or within your department, or people who are close to the bot and its purpose. So if it's a sales bot, send it to your sales team, if it's or your customer service team, if it's or your marketing team. If it's a customer service bot, send it to your customer service team. If it's an HR bot, send it to your I forgot what they're called now, but the staff that just answers questions all the time. It has a specific name. I'm actually blanking. It's okay. Shared services. Here we go. So send it to these people, because these guys will have a very intimate knowledge of what kind of questions people will send to the bot, and so it's important to get that done by these guys. So you want to obviously provide them with a bit of direction as to what they can ask the bot. So you just want to provide maybe some topics that they can talk about, but you don't want to provide them with too much information. You want to see what happens if you kind of let it loose to them to figure out what kind of questions they can ask. This is going to be very, very important, and that's a really, really good first test. And then final test, which can kind of be split in half, is actually sending it to the end users. This is going to be obviously your biggest test, and it's going to be the kind of most not discouraging, but it's going to be the one where you realize, oh right, I didn't think of everything that this chatbot should be able to answer. These people have thought of 50 more FAQs that I should have programmed the bot to answer. These people have thought of 100,000 more ways of asking the questions that I thought I had nailed. So this is going to be really, really interesting. And typically I would encourage to have a 2 to 3 weeks kind of session on that, where you really strongly monitor your bot the first time it goes to the end users. The way I'm picturing, or the way we've done at ubisend, we've actually split that session in two, is if you do work with or work within a large company, in at the back of my head, I kind of go back to a specific client that we had, which is a big financial institution with 200, I think it was 150 or 200,000 employees. You don't want to go from testing it yourself to testing it internally to releasing it to 200,000 employees, because that's just a bit of a big jump, and it's a bit scary for some people. So if you are a ubisend partner, the idea that I'm kind of putting through here is you want to do a staged release as well when you actually release to the end users. And a good way to do this is to find power users, or find a power segment of your audience. So if you're going to release it to your employees as an HR chatbot, for instance, you might want to collect some data on who the people who are contacting HR all the time are, and then release that bot specifically to them. It might be 50 or 100 people. If you're releasing to customers, maybe you want to release it to just your UK audience for now, or people aged from that age to that age, or people who have purchased a very specific product. And that's just a good way to actually just release things little by little and keep training your bot without risking to just releasing it to everyone. All right, so that's kind of a long introduction to what we're going to do now, which is basically going through this process, but obviously just myself. I'm not going to send this to anyone because there are no customers and there are no teams behind this fictitious company. Cool, so because I built this a little while ago, I'm going to go through what the questions are. So obviously we went through that, so that's good. Each of these questions, if I click on, let's say, the portfolio one, I can see that I've programmed each of them to have 3 questions, which is good. So these 3 questions are basically the kind of setting stone for this particular questions model within your natural language processing engine. So by inputting these 3 questions, slightly variant of the same question, but obviously with the same intent in the back, they are about the same thing. I'm basically teaching the chatbot to understand not only these 3 questions, but also kind of merge these 3 into one and understand slight variants of them, which is great. So I've done that for this one. I'm pretty sure I've done that for all of them. So, oops, not that. Questions. Yeah, what are your web design services? Tell me about your web design services. Can you tell me about your web design services? So as you can see, they're really just exact same question, just phrased differently, which is really important. So you don't want to have slight, not even slight variance of the question. You want to make sure that it's very specifically the same intent. For instance, a bad way of creating a question here would be, what are your web design services? What are your web design services prices? Can you tell me about your web design services? Because with the second question there, with the second example, I'm introducing a brand new concept in this question, which is about prices, which when someone says, what are your web design services? What they want to know is, what kind of services do you provide, not the prices. Maybe as an aside, they want to know that, but it's not what the question is exactly about. So that's an important thing to keep in mind as you're training it. Okay, so we're confident that the FAQs have all of these kind of 3 examples. Now what we want to do is we want to go through what we call training. So training is a section of the app where you can see all of the messages that have come through to the bot. This includes, I'm just going to reset it here just to make sure that I'm on the right date. Yeah, perfect. So this includes messages that have been sent by real users, so that would be across all of your channels. So I think on this one we have the full page bot, the converse bot, and Telegram. So it would come from all of the different places that it's been connected to. So that's good. And it basically shows us a table of what the message was, what the bot understood the message as, its confidence score on that specific understanding of the utterance, and then some sort of timestamp. So if we take an example here, we can see, can I see your portfolio, which was the message that the user sent. The chatbot understood this as show the portfolio, and then it had a 94% confidence score that show the portfolio was the right FAQ to send back to the user, and this happened yesterday at 2 o'clock, at 2:30. So obviously here we have a nice list of 2 pages of things that have been happening to this bot, so we can have a quick look through that already. This is good. We have already data into it that we can actually use to train the bot. For each of these roles, we can do either of 3 things. we can hit correct, which would basically tell the chatbot, you understood this message as this FAQ, and your confidence score was X, doesn't matter, and you were correct to understand this message as this FAQ. Therefore, next time you encounter this specific message, raise your confidence score against this FAQ. So that's quite easy to understand. The next gray button is the ignore button. So the ignore button is just telling the bot, don't learn anything about this sentence. We don't care. It was random input. We don't want you to know anything about this. Just ignore it. So a good example is people sometimes, particularly myself, send messages like this one, where they just type whatever, just to see what happens. And obviously I don't want the chatbot to know anything about this. This doesn't mean anything. This doesn't say anything. Same thing here, 10 a.m. Friday, that doesn't mean anything. We don't want to train the chatbot to talk about that. And so I can just hit ignore, and that would just dismiss this message completely. Finally, the last thing we can do is we can explore. So exploring is basically saying, all right, you received this message as, let's say, what PPC services do you offer? That's the message you received. You understood this as about SEO services, which is obviously not correct. You only had a 50% confidence score, which we'll get back to the confidence score in a minute. So what I need to do is I need to say, okay, I need to actually redirect what you thought this meant to something that's actually accurate. And so I can hit explore on this particular message. And I can just go in through the quick train or through the list of FAQs here, I can go and find the actual accurate one. So obviously this was about PPC, and it had a 50% chance, a 50% confidence score on the SEO one, which wasn't correct, but it had a 42% confidence score on the PPC one, which is actually, that's the right one. So what I want to do is I want to hit correct, confirm this, and basically now the bot will be trained for this one. Okay, so a quick bit on the confidence score. The confidence score is highly dependent on how many FAQs you have within your bot. So at the moment, most of the confidence scores here are really high, and that's most likely because I have 6 FAQs, I think. So there's not much for them for the bot to try and differentiate from. But eventually, when you have 100 to 150 to 200 FAQs, confidence scores kind of on average get lower. So you'll most likely notice, the highest confidence score for one FAQ might be 25% or 35% or 40%. But that's fine. It's something that you'll see evolve over time. So, all right. So let's go through this. Okay, so we have a few that are very evident. So can I see your portfolio, and do you have a portfolio? Let's have a quick look at the FAQ again, just to show you what's going to happen. Oops, I couldn't get to that for some reason. Show the portfolio. Maybe that doesn't exist. Oh, there it is. All right, cool. So we have questions here. Do you have a portfolio I can look at? Can you send me your portfolio? Where can I see your portfolio? Okay. So, can I see your portfolio? Is that one of them? No. So, can I see your portfolio is not one of the ones that I myself programmed manually. However, when the user sent this to the chatbot still figured out that this was a 94% chance that this was going to be about the portfolio, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. Same thing with, do you have a portfolio? So, we don't have, we have this first part of the sentence here that I programmed is actually part of this utterance, but not the rest. So again, this was a brand new sentence that the bot has encountered and gave it a 93% confidence score that this was the right one. So this is pretty good going. This works quite well. So what I can do is I can just say, tick these two, and I can just say both of those are correct. This was exactly what you were supposed to understand. So now if I have a quick look at this, just double checking. So now these two utterances, which is a fancy word for sentences, these two utterances that I've just trained the bot have been added to this specific questions, to specific FAQs questions. So this does two things. The first thing it does is that it gives you confidence that the bot has actually been trained for those, which is great. The second thing is it's adding these sentences to the model. So as I said earlier, when you create these 3 sentences, it's going to create a model around those to combine them into kind of a mix match of the different parts of these sentences, find out what the keyword that's kind of stands out with these sentences, which here is obviously portfolio, which is mentioned 3 times, and it's going to basically build its knowledge around this specific question. Now by adding these two on top of that, I'm basically growing this model little by little as I'm training it and training it and training it, which just gets better and better. So now I have 5 sentences that all have the word portfolio in it. So now obviously the chatbot knows that portfolio is a pretty important part of this FAQ, and whenever it sees the word portfolio, it's probably going to send this this FAQ straight away. Cool. So this is kind of what we want to do as far as training, and I'm obviously going quite slowly here for demo purposes. But once you're actually getting going, you can go through this quite quickly. Okay, what do we have here? We have one that's SEO services, one that's SER services. So these two are probably just people playing around. I can just delete those. I can probably delete this as well. OPKSF doesn't mean anything. This kind of random thing is probably myself just typing random things into the bot. So I can tick all of these 4 and just hit ignore. Now by hitting ignore, I'm teaching the bot that basically it doesn't need to learn anything about this. Okay, what else do I have? So I have 10 a.m. Friday. I don't want to learn anything about this. So depending on what your bot is going to be about, a time and a date might be valuable, but generally, if it's not part of the conversation, which wouldn't happen here anyway, it wouldn't appear here, you should usually quite kind of dismiss them because they're just going to be too highly specific to the conversation that the user was having. So yeah, kind of up to you, up to whatever you're doing. So I can ignore that. Okay, so an interesting one we have here is hi. Hi is obviously just saying hello to the bot, and it's something that you'll encounter quite a lot. People will go to your bot and just say hello, how are you, what are you doing today, what's the weather like, where you are, all sorts of random sentences that people just think a chatbot should be able to answer. Now, it's 2021 now, and ubisend has been trading for about 5 years, and we've seen a massive shift in the way that users actually engage with bots. Initially, in 2016, 2017, people were all about these kind of sentences. They were saying hi, they were saying how are you, they were trying to get a joke out of the bot, and it was really a funny experience, but no one really thought chatbots were that helpful, really. They weren't that useful, and obviously we had a strong feeling that they would be eventually, and we obviously were right. But importantly, back then, every chatbot needed to have this kind of small talk feature, which is all about being able to give it the ammunition to answer these kind of questions and make it funny, make it a personality. And all of this is called small talk. Now, if you've noticed here on my sidebar here, I have a small talk button, which is basically exactly that. So small talk is a pre-programmed section within the ubisend platform where the chatbot has like I said, pre-programmed answers to these kind of messages. So I can go and find hello, for instance, and so example trigger is hello there. So if someone sends hello, the bot can say hello there, hi, how can I help, etc., etc. So my dog is walking in. Hello. There we go. So the bot is going to say all sorts of things here. Now. Okay, that's good. So we have hello, we have things like are we friends, I love you, which people say all the time. I have about 7 pages of this, which is, I think there are 25 examples here, so I'm not going to do the math, but you can imagine that's about 150 or whatever. And where I was going with the kind of the looking back in time is we noticed that obviously 2017 people were doing that. Chatbots were kind of gimmicky. People wanted to send hi and receive hello back and with a little smiley face, and that was it. But nowadays what we do find is most people don't care about any of that. They want to go to a chatbot and they want to be able to say, show me your portfolio, which is an interesting one. I don't know if it's gonna actually work. So alright, so show me your portfolio, that's it. They don't want to say hi, they don't want to say hello, they know this is a chatbot, they know that they've experienced this for the last 5 years, so they don't really care about any of that. They just want to get the information they're here for. So what ended up happening is, whilst most chatbots initially had by default small talk turned on and it was a big deal, nowadays we don't really want that anymore. Most customers don't want that. Most of your customers won't want that either if you're using the ubisend platform as a partner. And so by default, all of our platforms, all of our bots have small talk turned off. If I look into the settings here, as you can see, the enable button is turned off, which means that when I go into trading, someone sent hi, and the bot didn't answer anything. It just said, well, it did answer something. It said, you can contact us at phone number and email address. And the reason for that is we didn't want the chatbot to be able to answer hi. We don't care about any of this. What we want the chatbot to be about is very specific knowledge, generating leads, not being a gimmicky interaction. So there are two things that we can do about this. The first thing we can do is we could create our own Smalltalk FAQs. So if you did notice that most people say hello and you're kind of bothered by the fact that the bot can't do that, you don't have to turn on the entire Smalltalk, which is, like I said, 150 or 160 utterances that the bot can handle, and where you have to tweak all of them, which is really annoying. So what you could do instead is just go into your FAQs and quickly create a new FAQ that is, hello. And then I'm going to call this Smalltalk as a tag, and I'm just going to say hello, hi, hey. Cool, so I can create that, and I can say, I can help you with, I can help by giving you information about our SEO, PPC, and web dev services. Yeah. So what I've done here is I've obviously created a brand new Smalltalk FAQ, and I'm answering the question from the user, but I'm immediately redirecting the user back to something that's actually valuable, something that's relevant to the purpose of the bot, and not just saying hi and hey back. That's obviously quite useless. Cool, so I've created that. So what I can do now is I can go back into here, I can find this message, and I can do this explore thing. So I can explore, I can go and find hello, which is this one, and update. Perfect. So this is kind of an odd example, because obviously we went through this whole Smalltalk kind of history and figuring out why we're doing this in a specific way. But this is the same process that you would go through if someone said to the bot something that you didn't really expect. Like for this one, what kind of figures can you do? So let's see, do you have a portfolio I can look at? Let's say someone sent, how much are your, how much is your average PPC package? So obviously this is a question about pricing, it's about PPC, and the bot has no answer for this. So if I go back into my knowledge and I go into training, I can see that it's here. It has it understood the question about PPC services, but it's really not sure, because it has all of these other things like average and package and how much, which is, none of that really fits with whatever else I just did. So the process that I just went through of creating a new FAQ for the hello utterance, you can basically go through the exact same thing for this one. So you would go back into your FAQ and you would say, all right, great, I need to create something about this. PPC package pricing. I'm going to put this as a pricing tag, and I'm going to say, how much are PPC packages? What do PPC packages cost? What is the average cost of a PPC package? I can create that, and I'm going to give it an answer. I'm going to use an action message, because why not? And we could say, our PPC packages are tailor-made to your requirements. While I suggest you speak to one of our team members, you can expect them to range between, let's say, £4,000 and £50,000, because we're expensive. And then I'm going to use a post back here, and I'm just going to go and say talk to an expert, and we can do PPC services. If you don't know what I've just done here, make sure that you go back and watch the previous sessions where we did all about postbacks and things like that. Okay, cool. So now this new FAQ has been created. PPC package pricing, perfect. I can go back to my training and I can just say, all right, I completely forgot that people are going to ask what prices. I should have probably thought about that before. I can now explore this. I can find the FAQ that I just created, which is here, PPC package prices, update this. Perfect. So now if I go back and just ask some questions, so how much are your PPC packages? Let's see if it picks it up now. Didn't understand, so we can do some more training on that. let's see, what did I actually write as the FAQ? How much are PPC packages? How much are PPC? How much is the average PPC package? Let's see, how much is the average PPC package? Okay, it's not understanding. I think it just needs to go through the training, which has probably not happened yet. So I would have to hit this train button, so which actually is a pretty good thing to talk about. So as you do your kind of first training sessions, what I would recommend is going through a whole bunch of it. Hopefully, 100, 200, 600, 1,000 utterances that you think you should be trained for. And then when you're done, hit the train button. What happens is your platform will automatically train as long as this is turned on. It will automatically train at about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning UK time, but 9 hours ago. So it is 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. But if you've done a lot of training, what you might want to do is just hit this train button, which is basically going to force train this your models, which is what's happening right now. So I'm just creating more things, but the bot is not kind of caught up to it yet. I would have to hit this button. But I'm going to save that for when I'm actually done with it. So I just sent 2 more messages here, so I can just explore these 2 again. So I'm just going to add this to the PPC packages. So this is kind of work that you'll basically do as you work through your training. So PPC packages, yeah. Pricing, perfect. Show me your portfolio. I had an 89% confidence rate on this, and it's actually perfectly correct, so I can hit correct on that. How much? So this is an interesting one. So you could, if you had one kind of cost for your whatever service you provide, like for instance ubisend, we have one license fee. So how much is probably around a question about pricing. But for this specific example, because we have 3 different kind of services and products, all of which have different costs, I don't really want to train my bot to understand this. This is not really a sentence, and by default I don't really want to train my bot to understand anything that's not a fully formed sentence, or at least a very, very specific keyword. If someone sends portfolio, I know that that's probably asking to see my portfolio, but if someone sends how much, or prices, for instance, I don't want to train this around anything. If I have multiple prices, if I have multiple services or multiple products, if let's say you have an e-commerce website with 150 products, and someone says how much or prices, you probably don't want to answer that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ignore this one. Cool. So these 3 are all about portfolio, so I can explore this. Portfolio. Yep. Portfolio. It's good that we can type this little search thing inside the retraining thing, because that saves a lot of time. Portfolio. So this is an interesting one. It had a little spelling mistake here, and so hopefully moving forward, well, it already had I think this was actually created before the portfolio FAQ was created. As you can see, it's not inside a quick train, which is why it's not inside a quick train. So that's probably why. So let's have a play with that actually. Train messages. Where is it? Portfolio. I think it was like that, wasn't it? Yeah. So this is the one with the spelling mistake. So let's see what happens if I send this now with the spelling mistake. Okay, so it's picking it up quite nicely. So what most likely happened, and I'm 95% sure of that, is that the bot just didn't, it wasn't trained to answer that question before at the point at which we sent that question. You have to remember that I've been creating this bot for about 7 weeks, and so at various points of obviously creating the bot doesn't always have the knowledge that it has at the end. So this is part of actually making up the content that will make the bot. What are your web design services? 62%, which is kind of surprising. It's very low. So we're going to just correct this, and hopefully the next time it's going to be more confident. Do you do PPC? So I think this one's fine to do about PPC. So about PPC services, I think is completely fine. So we're going to do that. And then chatbots and chatbots. Why I don't think this company. Well, actually, this is a marketing agency, and a lot of marketing agencies build chatbots, particularly through our partner program, which I'm just going to do just going to show you is on kind of partners.ubisend.com. If you are a marketing agency and you want to actually start providing chatbot services to your customers, you can become a Ubisend partner, which comes with loads and loads of benefits, and is mostly free unless you want to white label the platform. But yeah, it allows you to really use the full power of the ubisend platform to just basically generate a new revenue stream for your company, which is great. And so in this fictitious example of the Yellow Dot Marketing Agency, I'm going to pretend that this company does actually want to build chatbots, and so I'm going to create a new FAQ for this one. About chatbot services. Chatbots. Do you create chatbots? Do you provide chatbot services? Can you create a chatbot? Yeah. Now, what I would have to do is go through the entire process that we've gone through a couple of weeks back of creating a conversation around it and everything. So I'm not going to do all of that because obviously we've gone through that quite a lot. But what I'll do is I'll obviously say, we are excellent chatbot builders. If you'd like to discuss your project, I can put you in touch with our chatbot team. Something like that. Obviously, you would like to have a button that actually sends a contact detail or onboards the user into a long sequence about booking a meeting, etc. But we're just not going to do that for now. So FAQs about chatbot services is now here. I can go back into training, and I can train this nice little FAQ about this, about chatbot services. Perfect. And finally, so SEO services. Obviously, this is very relevant to this one, 80%. So next time, just make sure that you raise up your score on this. All right. So we've gone through kind of the first section, which is looking at the messages that the bot has already received. Now, as you've seen, we kind of started with a bit of a disadvantage in that I only created 5 FAQs before we started this process. So what would most likely happen is that as I'm training this bot, I would have to create loads and loads of FAQs right now, which is probably not something that we want to do live because we kind of understand the principle now. But in a much more normal setting, what you would have built would have been 100 FAQs already before you even start training, or 80 or 100 FAQs. And so most likely what would happen is you would just go into the bot and just type, send loads and loads of messages that are very related to the topics that your chatbot is supposed to be able to handle. And then you can go through like 3, 5, 10, 15 pages of training and just teach your bot to understand all of these new utterances. You wouldn't really necessarily go through and have to create new FAQs every time. That would happen in session 2 or session 3 when you actually send it to other people. So let's go and do that kind of. Let's pretend that we've created 150 FAQs already and we're kind of ready to go. So let's just type loads of messages. So tell me about your SEO services. Whether or not the bot understands them at this point is not that relevant. So what we want to know is we just want to type loads, and then we want to go back and SEO service. Can you provide SEO services? Can you help me with SEO? Do you do SEO? Can I get SEO help for my website? So all these sorts of questions that obviously I could have filled these out, but now as my brain is kind of in this conversational mode, I'm kind of coming up with all of these on the fly to make sure that the bot is able to understand them. So at the moment it understood 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 out of 8. So it's not too bad for now. I need SEO help. Can your team do SEO? Can I book you for SEO services? Can I speak to someone about SEO services? Can you put me in touch with, oops, I can't type, touch with your SEO team? I'm getting messages, so I'm just going to quickly double check that it's not about, okay, perfect. Just double checking that it's not about my microphone being crap. Okay, that's probably enough. Let's move on to contact. How do I contact your team? How can I speak to someone? What are your contact details? What is your phone number? What is your email address? What is the best way to get in touch with you? What is the best way to speak to someone? Alright, that's probably enough as well. Let's talk chatbots. So, can you create chatbots? Do you provide... Oh, that's interesting. So, can you create chatbots? Actually triggered the portfolio FAQ, which is surprising. It probably has a very low confidence score, so we'll have a look at that. Do you provide chatbot building services? Didn't understand. Do you have a chatbot service? Now remember that this chatbot specific FAQ, I created it just now and I didn't hit this training button, so it's most likely why it's not picking any of them up just yet. You would have to go through and click that training button, which we'll do later on, but it's good to go through this anyway. I want you to build a chatbot for my business. Do you have a chatbot building team? Can you create a chatbot for my company? Perfect. So it keeps picking up this FAQ, this portfolio FAQ, which is kind of odd. I think as soon as we kind of do a bit of training on that, it's just instantly going to be much better. So what else is there? PPC. We did some PPC pricing stuff. PPC services. So do you provide PPC services? Do you do PPC? Can I book you for PPC services? I guess. Oh, I made a spelling mistake here. Didn't understand it. Okay, what kind of PPC services do you provide? Here we go. So it's picking those up quite nicely. Obviously, we've done quite a bit of work on those ones, and it was a while back, so the bot had a chance to actually learn through them. What else can we do? Let's try just like keywords. So if I just send PPC, okay, SEO. Okay. Oh, sorry. PPC didn't pick it up properly. It picked up the SEO. Sorry, I misread. Chatbot. Oh, I can't write. I can't write and then I send too quickly. Chatbots. The fact that all of these are coming up. Oh, there you go. So now it's picking up. It's starting to pick this one up, which is interesting. This happened literally mid training, so that's quite cool. Chatbots. What else do we do? Web design. I think, do we have web design? Is it web design or web development? Yeah, web design. Web development. Okay, so this is nice. It's picking up the web word as the keyword of this FAQ, so that's quite cool. Let's do web dev, and then we'll do web dev in one word. This one's going to be tricky. Oh, it's picking up the SEO one, which is kind of odd. So that's something you can have a look at. It's probably picking up web and website here. What else is there? Oh, we have contact, obviously. It's good to train your bot to have answers for these quick words, because again, like I said earlier, we went through 2017, people just having really lengthy conversations and trying all sorts of fancy things like, hello, how are you, tell me a joke, tell me another joke, etc., etc., and just, you know, being a bit silly about it, to people actually not getting tricked, but thinking that because bots were getting so good, people were starting to get a bit confused by, is this a bot, is this not a bot? And so every now and then you would have really long interactions with the bot where people were kind of fooled for a while, which is a bad thing. You don't want to do that, but I'm not going to go into that now. But nowadays, what we notice mostly is that people know exactly that this is a bot. They'll know straight away. And most likely it is because the introduction to the conversation actually says, I'm a bot. So like this one, welcome to our chatbot. So people know exactly, okay, this is a chatbot. And so because they know that, they are less likely to actually send full-on sentences. They'll use the chatbot a bit in the way that you use Google, where you'll say, you know, Chinese restaurant near me. You're not saying to Google, can you show me links to the nearest Chinese restaurants? You're not really making full sentences. You're using a lot of words, but you're leaving out the non-keywords, if that makes sense. And we do realize that nowadays that's how people use chatbots as well. So they'll come in here and they say, okay, this is a chatbot, cool. All I want to know is I want to know how to contact them. Boom, contact. Or all I want to know is pricing. Done. That sort of stuff. Now it's good to program your chatbot to understand those. All right, I think that's probably enough. We did quite a lot here, and obviously in a real setting you would spend a lot more time doing this. So I would suggest you do 20 or 30 different ways of asking the same questions for every single topic that you have programmed your chatbot to do. And when you consider that you might have between 80 and 100 FAQs at the very start of the bot, this could be a lot. So, all right, let's go back to training, see how much how much work we have to do here. So we have 3 pages, which is not too bad. Any kind of active bot will have, quite a few pages, and obviously initially you have a lot of training pages, but the more you train your bot, the less it relies on this, the less its confidence score. Oh, this is a complex sentence to say. The higher its confidence score will be on all of the sentences that it receives, and so the less training you actually have to do. So what you want to do is front load quite a lot of that. So let's go through those. So I didn't really create a pricing thing for the reason that I mentioned earlier. So what I might do is that's kind of my bad. I might just ignore this one for now and just not create anything for this. All right, so contact, it understood these two, 88% perfect. Obviously these two are the same, so I can just hit correct on this. Web dev, so this one, it understood this one, and this one, and this one, so that's good. But it didn't understand the top one, which is web dev in one word. It went through SEO services, so I'll have to, it's only 54%, so that's kind of understandable. I'm gonna have to go and update this. So I can hit update. This one is only at 20% confidence, so now that I'm gonna hit this update button, it's gonna raise its confidence later on and put it above the one that it thought it was. So Chatbot didn't understand it at all. It went below even the kind of the basic confidence score that it's supposed to have. I think this Chatbot is probably programmed to fall back after below a certain what's it set at? Let's see. Yeah, so it's I turned it off. So it's set to below 50%. So if the confidence score is below 50%, the bot is just going to say, sorry, I don't understand, instead of trying to match it with something. So what it's doing is that it's just, because this one is 35%, it's just it probably just sent, sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. So what I can do is I can just update this and send it to, obviously, the Chatbot services. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay. This one is obviously a spelling mistake. The bot didn't pick up on it, only 46% anyway, so I'm going to train that. Typically the kind of obvious spelling mistake, like forgetting the apostrophe between it and s for it is or it's, that kind of stuff, it's just kind of breeze right through it. We saw it earlier with portfolio and portfolio or something like that. It's going to pick it up, but things like really obscure words that are misspelled, obviously the chatbot's not necessarily going to know about that. So misspelling the word chatbot, for instance, it can be a pretty harsh one to judge a chatbot's knowledge on. So it's worth training the bot on those. If some people just mash the keyword, and that's what I do. So that's fine. SEO, I can train that. That's perfect. I can 86% correct on this, so that's good. I can train that. PPC, it picked this up as SEO services, not good at all, so I'm going to change that to PPC, which is very surprising because they're at 86%, that's really high. So that's why it's worth training early on, because that's the kind of stuff you can pick up really early on and completely avoid issues. Same with this one, 50% though, so that's a bit better. So I can just do PPC for this one. It's 50% and 33%, so you'll see that now because I just trained this one, it's just going to go much higher. This one was correct, even though I made a mistake. Unfortunately, its confidence score was below the threshold. So that's another good one to kind of just train here. Correct. Do you provide PPC services? Didn't correct that. Didn't pick up that. I can train that. Perfect. All right, we're almost there. So can you create chatbots? What's the best way to, okay, so all of these ones have been pretty much perfect, picture perfect. So I can just tick all of those. Contact detail, contact detail, contact detail. Perfect, correct. So that's good. Batching all of them is actually really, really important. Same with these ones. So SEO services, SEO, do you do SEO? Oh, sorry, this one's in PPC. I need SEO help, perfect. So these three worked perfectly. The other three, not so good. So we're gonna go and edit those. So we have, this one is about SEO. So I'll take this. SEO. It's interesting that it keeps, I think it's because it has services and services on both, and they're both really short, like PPC and SEO, 3 letters. So I think it's just struggling a little bit, but as you can see, it's well, it's 29% and 13%. So it's kind of interesting. I think, can you put me in touch with your SEO team? So yeah, the proof is just going through it, training it, and making it better over time, and that's how you're just gonna get through it. There's no kind of secret at the start of building a bot, and any platform that tells you that you don't need to do any training for your chatbot, and it's just gonna automatically work like that, is just absolutely lying. Chatbots will always require training, and in fact, the only way it wouldn't require training is if it's exactly the same chatbot that someone else has used, which is not really how you would use ubisend anyway. The ubisend platform is to create your own kind of solutions, and that are really specific to whatever it is that you or your clients need. And for that kind of specificity, you need to spend time actually building it and making it your own. So that's how it works. Can you create a chatbot to my company? So this is obviously the chatbot one. Chatbot services, perfect. We have a few here to do that, don't we? SEO, chatbots, chatbot services. Okay, we're pushing towards the hour here, so I'm gonna smash these out. Chatbot services. That was correct, right? Yeah. Chatbot services. Chatbot building services. All right. So this is, you can see that this is the one that wasn't trained before we actually started testing it, which is why they all came out wrong. So that's a bit extra work that you wouldn't really do usually, because you do all of the FAQs, then you'd hit train, then you'd go away and wait for the training to be done, which is obviously just a few minutes or whatever, and then come back and do this. But obviously I'm trying to kind of do this somewhat quickly to be able to show you. So this is an interesting one. So can I book you for SEO services? As you can see, it went through PPC, but it only had a 41% score, and then the next one, which is the right one, had a 38%. So as you can see, they're really close to each other, and this kind of training that we're doing right now is where kind of the two utterances and the two models around these two FAQs are starting to set themselves apart. And so this is why it's really important, because if you have two ones that are really, really close to each other, and they kind of always, it's kind of always be either this one or this one, and you don't really know, what you want to do is spend a lot of time training both so that they kind of separate as much as possible. And so yeah, the reason for that is about PPC services, about SEO services, the questions are really, really similar. So you really want to teach the bot that the keyword out of this is SEO or PPC for later on. So alright, training this. Can your team do SEO? Same thing, 42%, 40%, so you want to really move them apart from each other. Can I get SEO help from my website? Explore. Kind of similar, 37, 21, not bad. Alright, cool. So we've gone through a lot of training. If I go back into my FAQs, which we've created obviously 3 new FAQs here. If I pick any of these FAQs, let's say a PPC one, as you remember, we had 3 utterances in here, and now this particular one has 3, 6, 9 utterances, which obviously helps. You kind of eventually will have FAQs that have 20, 25 utterances as you keep training it. And then at that point, I would probably say that you don't need to train anymore. That utterance is usually quite good at that point. It's actually really, really good at that point. So this is a really good start. We have this specific one. We have obviously portfolio one that we did loads of on as well. So we have about 7 or 8 FAQs here, or utterances, sorry. SEO services. We have loads in here. We did a lot of SEO training. So all of that's good. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to go into training, and I want to hit that big train button here in the top right. This may take a couple of minutes. Perfect. I'm just going to send this, and I'm going to let it train. As you can see, it's working now. And now I'm done for my training session. So I'm both done for the training sessions with you guys, and I'm done with training actually my bot. So I'm going to let this run. This is, I think, going to be the last session of this particular build. So next week I'm going to start something new. I'm not quite sure what that's going to be about yet. If you have any ideas, just feel free to send an email to myself, or just reach out if you're already a user, or just leave a comment. If you don't want to miss any of these, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll receive a little notification when I or my colleagues go live. And yeah, go back and watch the previous videos if you haven't seen them. If you'd like to talk to us about purchasing a license to the ubisend platform, you can go to the ubisend website and just hit get a demo. I can take you on a nice tour. If you'd like to become a partner, go to partners.ubisend.com, and also place an inquiry here by clicking apply now, and I'll be in touch with you very soon. Thank you for attending. I'll speak to you all soon, and